Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Stryftek, and I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. Is it worth your time? On trial today. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Made by Machine Games, who are most known for their recent work on the Wolfenstein games, they're also under that Bethesda umbrella, so they partner with some of their sister studios to work on Deathloop, Doom, Quake, and Skyrim. When I first heard about this game, I fully expected it to be terrible. Historically, video game adaptations of movie franchises tend to be cheaply made cash grabs, and when this game started with a shot-for-shot remake of one of the Indiana Jones movies, I assumed the worst. Yet I pressed on. I do want to make mention that I don't think I've ever seen an Indiana Jones movie. Clips, of course, but I don't think I've ever sat through a movie. So this review is coming from a fresh perspective, someone who isn't overly familiar with the franchise. Is it good enough to make me want to watch one of the movies? You play as Dr. Indiana Jones, a professor at Marshall College. After waking up from a 3D rendition of Raiders of the Lost Ark, you find yourself in your office. You hear a commotion outside and you go to investigate. What you find is a mess. Things are in disarray, footprints all over the floor. You suspect some mischief from one of the students.
Someone's getting expelled tonight.
But instead, you encounter a giant man kneeling before one of the exhibits. After a brief scuffle, he escapes with the relic, and you awake to an empty room.
Is that the best you got? Come touch it.
The thief left many clues and you end up in Italy, at the Vatican Church, trying to figure out what's going on. You're quickly drawn into a race against the Nazis to recover these powerful relics, and while Indy's skeptical about their supposed power, he is intent on keeping them out of Nazi hands. And as you could probably have guessed, these aren't ordinary artifacts. Your journey takes you to the hidden treasury in the Vatican, the pyramids of Egypt, the mountains in the Himalayas, and beyond. Each location brimming with its own lore, quests, secrets, and puzzles. However, it was the main storyline that kept me hooked until the very end. The one downside was the game's reliance on cutscenes. At times, it felt like I was watching an Indiana Jones movie instead of playing the game, which was a little bizarre. I had some preconceived notions about Indiana Jones, so I wasn't expecting this pseudo-slapstick comedy that was in all of these cinematics. It wasn't bad, I just thought Indiana Jones was more of a serious character, but I digress. At its core, this is a first-person puzzle game. While there is combat, most encounters can actually be avoided through stealth, which in and of itself is actually a puzzle. And let me tell you, these are the highlights of the game. The puzzles, not the stealth. Let me show you one of the easier ones. We're given this wall with no explanation. Someone used to gaming puzzles is going to realize very quickly you have to move that piece there on the left across all the way to the right. The whip can pull the chains to make it move back and forth, but you need to make the path. However, in that path, there's some wooden blocks that need to be dropped in the right locations, while twisting the right layer of the circle to make sure there's still a path for the ship to travel. It's not an overly complicated puzzle, but it does something that other games aren't right now. Just listen and let me know if you can figure out what it is.
Let's just save it for another time, huh?
At no point has someone tried to give you a hint. And it's amazing that that's a novelty these days. Far too often in a game, you walk into the room and either your character or the NPC next to you drops the hint that solves the puzzle. And so very often when you ignore them, they just keep repeating the same thing. And if you've played any other video game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But however, here in Indiana Jones, that doesn't happen. You have to figure out the puzzle. And it is so refreshing. And as I mentioned before, this was one of the easy puzzles. They have a ton more. Object puzzles, codes, ciphers, light, and so much more. And during all of these, never are you directly given a hint. Now, you may often refer to the notes Indiana takes in his journal to solve said puzzles and ciphers, but you don't walk into the room and hear Indiana say, I better check my journal. Now, when you're not solving puzzles, you're probably exploring the area looking for clues, items, upgrades, and collectibles, or completing one of the numerous optional side quests. This game has a lot to do. Just look at these numbers here. And while each of these are rewarding and enjoyable, I just got side quest fatigue from how many there are. And so after the second area, I just pushed the main storyline unless I literally walked into the side quest and then I'd do it. And doing that, I walked away with about 24 hours of playtime, but if you did everything the game has to offer, I could see you easily pushing 40 plus hours. Now, of course, you can stealth your way around everything, but the game does have combat. To start off, the guns are dumb. The enemies are bullet sponges, you shoot them in the head and they just keep coming at you. And then, of course, they shoot you once and you're dead, basically. But that's okay, because the melee combat and the improvised weapons were actually the highlight. Basically, anything you saw, you could pick up and hit the enemy over the head with. Brooms, dustpans, guitars, and even fly swatters were fair game. And this made the melee combat so much fun. Between dodging, blocking, throwing a few of your own punches, you'd frantically search for a nearby weapon to beat them over the head with. Though I do question why Indy's punches sounded like gunshots. He must be eating a spinach. But if combat isn't your style, for the most part you can sneak around everything. You can throw objects to distract enemies, walk around behind them. It's not a great system. It's probably about as good as Skyrim or maybe Deathloop, both of which, coincidentally, this developer either made or helped made. But yeah, it's okay at best. My one huge gripe is actually the save system. Instead of giving you the typical save button, the game only relies on autosaves, which is just about the worst thing ever. Your goal is to explore everything, look at everything, read all the documents, but far too often one of the items you interact with or one of the documents you read progresses the storyline in such a way that you can't do any of the things you missed. So far too often there are like 5 documents on the table and I read 3 of them, but that third one triggers the cutscene that then pushes me out of the room and I can't read the other 2. Now for one, they could fix this and make the main document a different color, but I'd much rather a good save system. Then if anything goes awry or I miss anything, I'll just load back at that other save. Oh, you went left instead of right? Well, the wall collapsed and now you can't go back, so you missed it. Please just give us a normal save system. The game is visually stunning, as long as you're not moving around in a jungle. Each area is meticulously crafted in a way that not only makes sense, but just looks amazing. You see something that looks cool and want to explore it? Do it. You'll probably have some amazing sights and get rewarded. The game also knows it looks good. They gave you a camera to take pictures of all these scenic points as you're going around, literally making you stop and enjoy the scenery. Now, yes, these pictures do end up in Indy's journal, which you'll often re-reference for puzzle solving, or Indy will give someone a picture. And yes, it also provides XP, but it also makes you stop and actually look at what's going on in front of you and enjoy how good this game looks. Until you get to a jungle and everything is popping around you. Now, what do I mean by popping? Quite literally, as you're moving around, an object that wasn't there pops into existence. So as we're here on this boat, if you look up ahead and focus in this red area, you'll see all of this greenery just pop into existence. And this noticeably happens all the time in the jungle, and it is beyond distracting. And I tried all the graphical settings and nothing seemed to fix this. One last thing, what's up with this stealthing animation? I'm sneaking around and I got these like Jack Sparrow hands going on. While I haven't seen the movies, I am very familiar with Harrison Ford's voice, and I 100% thought he was voicing his own character. He's not. It's Troy Baker, a huge name known for roles like Joel in The Last of Us, Booker from BioShock, Batman and Joker from various shows, and about 1 million more games and animes. But his rendition sounds spot on like a young Harrison Ford.
Hidden chamber, huh? I'll show these Nazis how it's done.
And his performance was complemented by other incredible voice actors. Everyone sounded great, and I love that people would talk in their native languages and we had to read the subtitles. That little detail just brought so much more to the immersion. Meanwhile, the soundtrack had the iconic Indiana Jones theme, but the rest was mainly atmospheric. So, is it worth your time? Coming from the guy that hasn't seen an Indiana Jones movie, I now plan on watching a couple. The story in this was compelling and entrenched with just enough realness and possibility that I found myself dying to know more. It reminded me of seeing The National Treasure for the first time. Everything was fiction, of course, but things were close enough to being real that you were sucked in and had to know what happened next. As mentioned before, I walked away with about 25 hours of gameplay, and I skipped a lot of the side quests after the first 2 areas. If you do those, you're probably looking at 40 hours of total gameplay, which is not bad at all for a $70 price tag, unless you have Xbox Game Pass and it's free there, along with a ton of other really good games. But ultimately, if you couldn't have guessed it, yes, this is worth your time, and I hope they come out with another one. My name is Stryftek, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, by all means, click that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on Is It Worth Your Time?